Exclusive new audio into Outfront of former President Donald Trump saying that he would have been, quote, very well received by the people rioting at the Capitol on January 6th. Take a listen to this.
But if you look at the real size of that crowd, it was never reported correctly. It's the biggest crowd I've ever spoken in front of by far.
Really?
By far. That went down to that went back to the Washington Monument.
You told them you were going to go up to the Capitol. Were you just...
I was going to, and the Secret Service said, you can't. And then by the time I would have, and then when I got back, I wanted to go back. I was thinking about going back during the problem to stop the problem, doing it myself. Secret Service didn't like that idea too much.
So what?
I could have done that, and you know what? I would have been very well received. Don't forget, the people that went to Washington that day, in my opinion, they went because they thought the election was rigged. That's why they went.
All right, that audio comes from an interview that Trump gave to ABC News chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl, who you heard there asking the questions. He gave that interview to Jonathan Karl just over 2 months after the insurrection. Outfront legal analysts say that what you just heard in that exchange is highly valuable evidence for the prosecution. Our Ryan Goodman predicts that this audio will likely be part of the trial. So we have much more on the legal impact of this exclusive audio. But first, Jonathan Karl is out front. He is the author of the new book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party. So, Jonathan, you're sharing this exchange with us, and you write in this book that this was an astounding admission. Those are your words by Trump. I mean, he's saying he wanted to go, which is, right, this is the whole back and forth, right, over the grabbing the steering wheel incident with Cassidy Hutchinson, but that he wanted to go and that he believed he had control over the crowd.
That he was going to be well received by the people that were attacking the Capitol building, the people that were assaulting police officers, trying to get in to stop that certification of the election, that they would receive him well. So this was an interview I did as part of a long interview for my book, Betrayal. And at the time, that exchange, because there was so much in that interview, didn't quite hit me. Because first of all, I didn't believe him when he said, oh, I wanted to go. I mean, I never really thought he wanted to go. But then I heard Cassidy Hutchinson testified before the January 6th committee, the whole thing about, how Trump was
berating. Did he lunge for the wheel?
Ms. Hutchinson, when you returned to the White House in the motorcade after the president's speech, where did you go?
When I returned to the White House, I walked upstairs towards the Chief of Staff's office, and I noticed Mr. Ornato lingering outside of the office. Once we had made eye contact, he quickly waved me to go into his office, which was just across the hall from mine. When I went in, he shut the door, and I noticed Bobby Engel, who is the head of Mr. Trump's security detail, sitting in a chair, just looking somewhat discombobulated and a little lost. I looked at Tony, and he had said, "Did you effing hear what happened in the Beast?" I said, "No, Tony, I just got back. What happened?" Tony proceeded to tell me that when the president got in the Beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, we don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing. The president had very strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." To which Bobby responded, "Sir, we have to go back to the West Wing." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol." Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel, and when Mr. Ornato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
Yeah, whatever he was doing, pressuring his Secret Service agents and them adamantly refusing, clearly well documented. So I went back and I mean, this is this is an admission that those were absolutely his people, first of all, but also that he had control over those people. And remember, he didn't go up there, and he also didn't do anything to try to get them to stop.
Right, and we all know there were other times when he would try to say that, oh, they weren't his people, right? Remember in the infamous call with then Speaker, with Kevin McCarthy, saying, these are your people. Okay, so that audio obviously could now be evidence. Right? It could be evidence in the federal investigation of Trump's efforts to overturn the election. You heard people think that it will be. You write that Trump was, quote, despondent, scared, and seething with rage about another case, the hush money case, into him here in New York. And since then, 2 indictments, Justice Department in Georgia, found liable for fraud in his civil trial. You have the entire situation going on in New York, right, with that civil trial as well playing out. Does he realize, John, that he's at real risk of going to jail?
I think that he has come to see that there is absolutely no difference between his presidential campaign and his legal defense. They have merged into one. There are 2 potential paths for Donald Trump, I think, in his mind. He can win back the presidency and do whatever he can to call it all off. Obviously, there's so much he can, it's debatable how much he can do on that front. Right. Or he faces the very real possibility of going to prison. He uses apocalyptic terms to describe this campaign. And it's not so much the impact on the country, it's the impact on him. He calls 2024 the final battle. And I think that's, for him, he really feels it's the final battle. You know, he wins, he's triumphant, or it's devastating.
And of course, I'm sure he's well aware, right, of that also for some would hearken to Fields of Armageddon. And I mean,
Yes.
that's exactly what he's doing. Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, the former chief assistant DA at the Manhattan DA's office, she worked with special counsel Jack Smith. So Karen, you just heard the exclusive audio, right? The conversation that Jonathan Karl had with Trump. And in it, Trump talks about wanting to go to the Capitol on January 6th, saying that the people there would have listened to him, referring to what was happening there as a problem. Why do you think this is very significant?
It's extremely significant because, first of all, it completely corroborates what Cassidy Hutchinson was saying when she testified before the January 6th committee. If you recall, after her testimony, there were many people, including, they were saying people from the Secret Service, denying that Trump wanted to go to the Capitol and tried to go to the Capitol and that they stopped him. So this corroborates Cassidy Hutchinson and really helps bolster and make her a credible witness to testify at the trial. The other thing I think it shows is he really talks about going twice, right? He said, first, I wanted to go with the crowd, and he knew the crowd was there to stop Mike Pence from certifying the election. So it goes to the intent that he had that same intent, that he wanted to make it so Pence wouldn't certify the election. But he also said afterwards, I wanted to go to stop the problem, as he called it, which is interesting because he could have stopped the problem. He knows he could have, and he didn't for 3 hours, right? He sat there. So that part of it, I think, lacks credibility. He absolutely had no intention of trying to stop that problem.
Right. I mean, it's whether he was trying to act like he was trying to stop it or also admitting that he knew early on that it was a serious problem as opposed to, oh, nothing's really happening here. It is fascinating just to see it. And in a conversation with someone like Jonathan Karl, who, he's known for a long time. And he was in this extended conversation. So, there is a sense of he really opened up to him. So when you look at the new information as you see it here, Karen, how does this add to Jack Smith's case against Trump to get something like this now?
Well, he's going to be analyzing all of the statements that Trump has made publicly about the events of January 6th, right? And really analyze them against each other and see which ones, because he will have said on the one hand, no, I didn't think anything was going to happen. No, I wasn't part of this crowd. And then later he's saying, I was part of it. So Jack Smith is, first of all, going to be very interested in obtaining copies of these statements, but not just the short snippets that you have, the longer interview. He's going to want to see all of it. He's going to want to listen to all of it and try to analyze it against all of Trump's other statements. He may decide to want to put those in as inconsistencies, or he might want to wait